Welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Um, so I've known you for a really long time now, and we've talked about a lot of different things. We've gone through a lot of different businesses, different business models. Why don't we just kind of start things off by giving us just your what you're up to currently? I know you got your hands in a lot of things right now. So what's kind of your main thing currently?
Well, the main thing is what produces freedom, right? Freedom in my life, first of all, starts with Christ. Spiritual freedom. Without spiritual freedom, none of the stuff we're going to talk about on the podcast even matters. So, I mean, I know you know that, and we live that every day. But other than that, man, financial freedom is cash flow exceeding your monthly expenses. I'm really kind of I'm not tied to any specific asset type. I'm not specific to any sort of vertical. I'm more concerned about, does it align with you as like, who has God created you to be? How do you see the world? The investments that you invest in should align with that personality type. We call it the investor DNA, and it should produce cash flow today, because then you can keep score, right? You can then say, hey, I've got 2,000 a month coming in and my expenses are 10,000. I'm 20% of the way to freedom. That's the only way to do it. Wall Street wants to confuse people and say, well, you have to have this unknown number. It's a really big number, but it's an unknown number that's going to produce freedom for you in the future when you're 65 and you can then retire. That's a scam, right? If I can keep score today, I can make informed decisions that produce cash flow today, that then I can say, man, we're really getting close to where I no longer either have to do my 9 to 5, or I no longer have to be so active in my business, whatever the case is.
Cash flow has to be greater than our expenses.
Every single time.
Cash flow greater than expenses equals freedom.
Yes. Passive cash flow.
Okay.
Because otherwise, and you could even say semi-passive. I know where you're going, Brian. I know where you're going.
You're reading my mind.
Nothing's actually passive, right? But I
was just going to ask you to define passive. That's all I was going to say. I wasn't going to say nothing's passive.
Well, here's my take on it. Russ and I we really like business. Like, that is something that we tend to gravitate towards, because we like to be in an advisory type role. We like to be in a position to provide capital. We like to be in a position to provide guidance and experience of what we've been able to do. We've scaled our business as big as we have. And so when we look at passive income type of business models, we automatically figure out who is the who that can be the operator for that model, and how can we add value to it. That, to me, is a very semi-passive. It means I'm going to still be in touch with that person. I'm probably going to be once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Just managing the manager.
Yeah, exactly. Have some sort of a meeting and look for ways to always help that person improve. But I don't want to be the one that is responsible for the day-to-day operations, because I just know that about myself. I'm just not that guy.
Wow. So, I mean, we can go in a million different directions. But you did say that, I don't know if you directly said Wall Street's a scam. Did you say Wall Street is a scam?
I will tell you, retirement is a scam. I think Wall Street plays off of the idea they keep things ambiguous, or this kind of, because there's so many variables. Think about it. Well, how much money do I have to have in order to retire?
So let's define a lot of these things, because they can mean different things to different people. Like Wall Street, I know what you're talking about. The stock market is what I would assume you're talking about, but stocks are tied to 401ks. They're tied to IRAs. Sometimes they're tied to, they're tied to other things than just someone going out there and freely trading in the stock market. So are you talking about 401ks? Are we talking about?
I'm talking about vehicles that are meant to take your money today with the hope of some sort of mountain that I can then start, peeling off in order to have enough before I die.
But what?
And Wall Street is the biggest vehicle. They use things like 401ks, IRAs, 529 plans, all the alphabet soup that you've heard, 403bs if you're in the government or whatever, TSAs. All these things are vehicles designed to take your money today, your valuable dollars today. They invest it. They get access to that money. They grow their businesses. They create cash flow for themselves today, not also for tomorrow. And then they hope you take all the risk. You hope that there's enough left over at the end that you can live on before you die. That to me is a scam. That is where we're trying to put the message out there that if you want something different, you need an alternative to that. And that alternative is to become an investor today, to be somebody who's taking control of your finances and not abdicating it to Wall Street or somebody else.
So just to play devil's advocate, and I'm not saying I disagree with you. I think I mostly do agree with you. But just to try to look at the other side of it,
please.
There's the I don't know what the heck I'm doing factor, right? Like throwing money into a stock market or to a 401k is, well, everybody's doing that. I don't know anything about the stock market. They're going to match. My employer's going to match. So, and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is safe historically.
So let me ask you a question.
But am I wrong to think that to come at it from that angle? Because I feel like that's the angle most people come from,
that's
right?
That's the default. That is the default.
I'm sure it's the default, but that's the angle most people. This couch is deep. It's too deep for me. I need it to be about right here. I want to lean back about right here. I gotta come. Yeah. I'm not as tall and as handsome as you are, Joey.
You're 100% right. It is the default. It is what people. I mean, think about it. When people sign up for a job in the first week, what happens?
Sign up for 401k.
They hand you the documents and they say these are your benefits, right? Sign up for benefits, and it's just assumed you're going to do 401k.
Because we've all been taught that if your employer matches,
it's free money.
It's no brainer.
It's 100% return.
You got to do it.
You've heard that, right?
Yeah. So what's wrong with that?
Well, here's fundamentally what's wrong with it is the same mindset that Wall Street and your employer or whoever is around you is giving you around your retirement and money does not apply to anywhere else in your life. Okay? If I said, well, hey, Brian, you really need to be in shape. You know, you need to take care of your body. Your health is important. Nobody's going to disagree with me, right? But are they going to say, hey, I've never done that before. I really don't know much about health and wellness. And so I'm just going to not do anything. I'm going to let somebody else do that for me. Is that ever going to happen? No. You're never going to have any results if you have someone else handling, you would never do that with your health.
No, yes, I agree.
Right?
But that's
it's
but I think that's the allure of this 401k thing, right?
The allure, yes, but I'm saying it's a lie.
Okay.
Because the same thing, if we were talking about kids right before the show. And you said, man, I never was a dad to a girl, to a boy. I was never a dad before. But was it ever okay to say, hey, I've never really done it, so I'm just going to let someone else do it? No. You would never. It would be ludicrous to say, I'm going to let someone else do something so important. Well, I'm telling you, we've been lured away to think that we're not smart enough to manage our own money. We're not smart enough to manage something.
I'm not. Important. I think most people would say that they're not. I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm saying I think
it stop you from being the best at it?
But I guess what I'm saying is, why do we use a property manager?
In terms of rental property?
Yeah. Why would I use a property manager?
That's for delegating things that you could do yourself, right?
That I'm not qualified. I don't think I'm qualified to do myself. And what I'm trying to say to you is, and for right or for wrong, and you're saying wrong, but for right or for wrong, I think the majority of people out there don't know enough about the stock market, but they do know that my employer is going to match it. And so I'm going to pump money in this 401k because historically speaking, stock market has always gone up significantly.
Significantly is not always accurate, by the way.
Historically.
But here's the thing about it. The person that wants true freedom is not going to abdicate that responsibility. And that's who I'm talking to. Because
Okay.
there are people, to your point, that say, I don't know anything about it and I don't want to know anything about
So
it.
you're talking to the person who wants to be involved, who wants to learn, who wants to start their own business, wants to invest their own money their own way.
Exactly.
But there's a big level of risk that comes with that. This is a big responsibility, right?
Well, but there is. It should not be taken lightly. I'm not saying you just go out and just spew money everywhere and hope that it works out.
Mm-hmm.
You have to invest in yourself, right? I mean, you and I are big proponents of masterminds. Why? Because you are the summation of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There is something powerful about being in the room with other people who are like-minded. If you just default to your friend base, your family base, the chances are you're not going to be around people that are going to be further along than you and who can help you think about those things at a high level. I am of the mindset that when we really take our finances seriously, we will invest with more confidence, even if we make mistakes along the way. Because we've talked about it. In order to grow, you have to fail. So this is, we're trained in school to get what? Hundreds, right? What's perfection? An A plus, 100, right?
Okay.
And anything less than that, I've made a mistake. I've messed up, right? I didn't make 100. And so I think people are scared to make mistakes when it comes to money. But we all know that is how you grow. There's nobody that has made significant wealth in this world that did not lose money at some given time.
What about the person that doesn't want significant wealth?
I don't care about significant wealth as much as I care about freedom. So this is to the person that says, I'm sick and tired, like one of the guys, Rick, in our community. He's like, I'm sick and tired of not being able to have breakfast with my son. Now, that doesn't seem like a really big deal if you
huge deal
have more time, right? Or your schedule allows you to do that. But for him, 25 years in the construction industry, and he's sitting there. He had a previous marriage that failed. He got remarried, and he's sitting there with his new son, and he's 5 years old, and he's going to school. He never has breakfast with his son. But that was his goal. He's like, I'm done with that. Like, I know how important those moments are, and I'm not going to give that up. I'm not going to keep trading. So this is the person that wants the freedom. They're going to say, the 401k is not getting me closer to freedom. If I quit putting money there, I now can have more control, and I can start investing in places that produce cash flow today. And so this guy, within 12 months, he's sitting at a conference and he's like, with us, and he says, Joey, I just knew I had to make the change. I found some partners that I started working with, and within 6 months after that, he was financially free. He was home. He's got on our podcast and he said, I'm eating breakfast with my son every day. I'm picking him up from school every day.
It's awesome.
Like that was his why. You know, I don't know what it is for everybody else, but when that why is big enough, you can no longer abdicate that to somebody else. That's what I'm saying.
So I feel like right now we've been talking in a lot of theory.
Yeah.
And I like to try to dig in and really let's talk about some practical things that people can do. Let me ask you this first. Where does Wealth Without Wall Street, your company, where does that kind of fit in to everything that you're just talking about?
So we are the kind of the media arm, if you will, the voice that is talking about how to get to freedom. And really there's 2 different major steps along the way. One, We believe that you have to have a clear goal, right? And that starts with your why. It starts with like who you want to become, what you want to be doing when you're financially free. And the second part of that is you have to organize your cash flows and the resources that you do have appropriately, right? Optimize what you have. And we would say that we created a passive income operating system, right?
What does that mean?
So the passive income operating system walks you through when I get paid, what happens to that dollar? Does it go to pay expenses? And then whatever portion of that's left over, how do I get it out of the rat race and over into what we call like the wealth interface, like your side of the world that now you're in control of, that you can start investing according to your investor DNA. Okay, so that's like another step. I get my cash flows organized. I get them stored properly, which I know you and I have talked about this for years. The infinite banking concept is at the center of that, and we've become experts in this space. We have full-time coaches that walk people how to implement the infinite banking concept, and then from there we started a mastermind that teaches people how to become the investor they need to become. Because again, the excuse that I don't know what to do, I don't know how to invest, I don't know what to invest in, can no longer be an excuse when you know that your why and your like getting to financial freedom is so important. So we built a mastermind so that you can be around people, so that you can get the coaching, so you can get the exposure to what all is out there. And I know if you listen to our podcast, we have over 21 different income streams that Russ and I have personally done. It produces over 50,000 a month in passive income. You don't have to do any of the things that we've done, but we wanted to try as many things as possible to be able to report to the world, hey, we're not the gurus out there selling the stuff. We're just doing what everybody is saying is possible. And then we're reporting back and saying, hey, by the way, vending machines really work. This is how this is working. Or the ice machine we bought sucks. Don't buy an ice machine because it doesn't pay you anything. But those are the kind of stories and things that we want to share with the world so that people can get exposure and then get down that path to financial freedom.
How does the infinite banking concept fall? I mean, is this something that is kind of in your eyes mandatory to be able to, as far as like these passive income streams, trying to get your passive income to be greater than your expenses so you have freedom? I think you said it's at the center. Infinite banking concept is at the center of all this. Is this like a mandatory thing? It has to go this way. This is what you teach, or do you kind of teach also outside of that box?
We would never say it's mandatory. We would say that this is the path we took, and that's why we want to give people the whole picture and how it's worked for us. It was the linchpin that was the difference maker for us. And let me tell you why. So first of all, if you don't know what the infinite banking concept is,
I'm going to link up a video that's going to be right now, right here, and it's going to explain it in detail because I don't know that you could do that in 3 to 5 minutes.
I couldn't, but I would have tried. So thank you for stopping me. But the bottom line is it takes, once you get your head around this idea that you need to put money in a place that you own, control, and then you have access to, the world starts to change. And we're talking theoretically here, so I don't want to be all theory. But the second thing that happens is once you have that money there, you now start thinking, what can I do with it? What opportunities are available? As opposed to the money's in my 401k. Okay, think about that for a second. Because I was there, when we first met, I was at Wells Fargo. All my money was going into 401ks, IRAs, things like that. Do you know I never saw deals that came across my desk because I didn't think I could take advantage of it. Because my money is tied up in all these places I can't access. You start using the infinite banking concept. Now I have cash in major supply. I have access to all this cash. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I can take advantage of that private lending deal. I can take advantage of that land flipping deal. We're talking to my daughter about. I can do this business opportunity. which one should I do? Now I have to be an investor, right? But the second thing is when I use infinite banking concept, every one of my dollars is doing multiple jobs. I'm no longer just putting money in a savings account, taking it out to go do this deal. I now have a savings vehicle that is always growing. I can leverage against that so it continues to grow, and I can do the business deal. I
Mm-hmm.
can do the vending machine. I can
Mm-hmm.
do the short-term rental arbitrage business. Whatever the case is, I now have $2 working at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention there is a life insurance component. So now I've
Mm-hmm.
also protected my family,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, that's to the tune of probably 4 times the death benefit that I would have had without it. So it's a tremendous generational play as much as it is a here and now cash flow machine that has been created.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's probably not super detailed, but just giving you like
Mm-hmm.
a little concept there.
So I've been on my phone looking at reels and looking at things. I'm sure you probably have too. And they kind of get to know you over time, your little algorithm that you've created through whether it's Facebook or Instagram, or I don't use TikTok, but YouTube Shorts, things like that. And a few different times, the same Dave Ramsey video, I'm sure you've probably seen this, where the guy calls in and he's talking about how good the infinite banking concept is, and Dave Ramsey just craps all over it. Have you seen this?
Dave Ramsey would never be a proponent of this.
Well, but my question would be, what are some of the things that you hear that, or could you have had a better conversation with Dave Ramsey about it? Combated some of his, maybe debunked some of his theories on the infinite banking concept, because there's a lot out there about it, good, great and bad.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have brought it so I could show it to you and and have you respond to it, because I think that'd probably be great. But just some of the things, like what I know the benefits of it. I mean, you got access to your cash. You're pretty liquid, right? It's about liquid within a day or 2 or 3, right?
Right.
You're protected from creditors.
Yep.
Because it's a retirement account, right? You've got the death benefit. You've got money that you would take out of the policy, and it's still earning interest as if it never left.
Because it's not being left. It's not leaving.
Okay.
Your money.
You're borrowing against it.
You're borrowing against it, just like equity in a house.
But you're still earning interest on the full amount.
Correct.
Even when you borrow against it.
Correct.
You're not earning interest on what's left. You're earning interest on the whole thing. That's the total principal. Yeah.
Correct.
Did I leave out? I'm sure I might have left one out. But
no,
but there's a lot of great benefits to it, for sure. What do you hear? What are some things that people say that are some negatives about it that you might want to debunk?
So the big things, like a Dave Ramsey, for instance, the first and foremost thing is Dave Ramsey is not speaking to the same person that we're talking to right now. Dave Ramsey is talking to the person who is ultimately underwater and they're trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That person should not go out and buy whole life insurance at a high premium amount, because they can't hardly afford to pay the bills.
Mm.
It is not the right time.
Mm.
Like, we're talking avatars, right?
Mm.
Every day you're talking to real estate investors. Well, how are they investors? They have a surplus somewhere
Mm-hmm.
that they're now leveraging into more wealth, into more assets. That person understands leverage. A person who is underwater, or a person that is up to their eyeballs in debt because their lifestyle has exceeded their income, they don't understand leverage.
Mm.
They're leveraging a credit card for lifestyle. That is totally backwards. That formula doesn't win. And what Dave Ramsey does a great job of is helping that person to get back to zero,
mm-hmm.
and then to start to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And that is freedom for that person, right? But they're still in a 9 to 5, and they are not ultimately looking for freedom the way that I'm talking about. The second thing about it is again, you have to be an investor to properly use infinite banking. There's some people out there that are talking about how if you use infinite banking, you can pay off your debts and that's going to make you rich. Bull. That's not how it works. It may be the first thing that you do, like pay off some debts using this vehicle to get used to it. But if you never leverage savings into assets that produce cash flow, you'll never be free. Okay. So, for instance, what does Robert Kiyosaki say about savers?
They're
He
losers.
says they're losers. Why? Because they're not actually, you're never going to outpace
Inflation, yeah.
with just putting a dollar in a savings account. Well, whole life insurance and infinite banking is just a savings vehicle. So you can't just save your way to retirement or to freedom or whatever. You have to become an investor. You have to be able to look and be able to find deals to leverage that cash wherever it may be. I'm just arguing that a properly structured whole life insurance policy or group of policies as we have is the best vehicle for it to save in before it goes to work in these various asset types. I mean, we can get into like all of the details that Dave Ramsey would try to use, but ultimately you can go on our YouTube. We did a video years ago, and he actually had an article about this whole idea of using whole life insurance versus term, and his numbers didn't even work out. Like we basically debunked him with numbers. They took the article down. So I don't know if it was because of us, but I'm willing to claim it. I'm willing to say it was because of us. But if you're talking about numbers, we can debunk it. But the bigger thing is he's talking to a different crowd.
Gotcha. Yeah. And by the way, this just came to my mind. If you want to see the most uncomfortable interview I've ever done in my life, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews,
I know where you're going.
The person who kind of coined the phrase infinite banking concept, kind of came up with the concept, or maybe coined the phrase.
He's the godfather.
Nelson Nash. I got to sit down with him, and I've sat down with him a few times. And if you are not on your game, and if you have just lack a little bit of knowledge about just finance, he's going to run circles around you. And he certainly ran laps around me for about an hour, and it's probably the most uncomfortable interview. I'm sure you watched it.
Oh yeah, no, he was, as you know, he was our mentor for probably over a decade before he passed. And I'm just telling you, I liken him to Jesus in many cases with the disciples. You know, like I would go to Nelson, ask him a question. He never gives you a direct answer. Like you read the Bible, Jesus never gave the disciples a direct answer. He would always be like, this is how it is. Whenever you fill in a parable, right? And the disciples even said it multiple times, like, we don't know what he's saying. Like, we don't understand what just happened. And that's how it was with Nelson. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
So Nelson spoke parables to me for a solid hour.
Or ask you questions back.
Right.
Without ever answering.
And I didn't know what I was doing. I wish I'm a little better prepared today with a little more experience, but this had to have been 7 years ago. I think it was probably 2018, 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And I'll link that up too if you want to see the most embarrassing interview of my life. It's definitely on our YouTube channel. Well, so getting back to, Joey, you guys are trying to find the right vehicle with infinite banking as the hub, as the center.
Right.
You're trying to find, how do we utilize this savings account? How do we utilize this money to go and try to invest it into some of these other vehicles? And you just talked about vending machines and ice machines, and I know you've done some land deals, and I'm sure you've dabbled in other real estate deals from a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Private money loans, everything.
RVs.
By the way, stay away from the RVs. Okay, just take my word for it.
But
it's a money pit.
So RVs, you said stay away from. You said stay away from ice machine. Could it be just you just didn't execute it properly?
It could. Now the RV, I don't think is executable, if that's a word. That because they depreciate so quickly. the more use. They're not really designed, in my opinion, at least the ones that I've looked at since COVID, were not. They were just poorly made, and so they are just constant repair, just money pits. Um, and if you don't intend to operate it yourself,
Mm.
then it can't be passive, number one. So
Mm-hmm.
I had an operator every time, and our splits just never allowed it to be profitable.
Mm.
So that's the 30 seconds on that.
So what vehicles have you found that work the best?
I'm going to go to this not because I'm trying to shirk your question, but whoever the person is, the investor dictates the success in many cases. Okay. Your personality type is not like mine, and vice versa. You may be very, very analytical. I'm not. I am not going to be attracted to or desire the same sort of criteria in an investment that you would. So I would first start with that. And we have Investor DNA is a course that we do. You have your own individual profile, and then it takes it through about 16 different passive income ideas in like a filter.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, oh, well, I'm a high I personality. I'm actually an S personality. And so in that, I like stability. I like things that are known.
Like 70%. You're talking about the disc test. Yeah. 70% are S's, I think.
I don't know. Is it that high?
I think it's pretty high.
I was thinking it was like I would be higher. But anyway, in my case, I don't like. So we got into the short-term rental business. Just to give you an example, I'm not that guy that wants to be in a conflict with a guest. Right? I don't want them to show up and be like, hey, I put a hole in the wall, but I'm not willing to pay for it.
Right.
Like I'm probably going to get run over by that person, and I just don't like that position. But Russ is a super high I. Mm-hmm. He's like, dude, we got to get into short-term rentals. And I'm like, okay, well, we partner together. We can do this. Mm-hmm. And we actually had an operator. It worked out great. Mm-hmm. But me by myself, I would have never gone down that road. Now, me doing private lending, huge. I love private lending. Why? I got collateral, super secure. One, I had a background in the mortgage business, so I understand how to underwrite deals. I know what the risks to look for and so on and so forth. And when you're the bank, you make the terms. I love being creative about the terms, right? So I say all that to say, your investor DNA is super important. What we have had the most success, if you look at our report, and we share it every month, our passive income report, the things that have been the most profitable is a land flipping business that we do not run. Okay, we have a full-time operational staff that goes out, they find raw pieces of land, they buy for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. These are people that are absentee owners of this raw land. They live in a different state. A lot of times they're like behind on taxes. So they're like the primary, like the perfect person to contact and say, hey, I'll give you 20% of what it's worth. They're just like, hey, good riddance. I didn't want it anyway. And it's a really cool model because most of the time these price points are less than $20,000 for that piece of property. Well, as you know, real estate agents aren't going to go and take that listing on because it's not profitable for them to spend the time, the listing, dollars, everything else. And so there's just not really a good market for that. So you literally send somebody an offer in the mail and they take it. You then turn around and you make it available to the retail buyer on terms. So I may be able to buy a piece of property for $5,000, turn around and sell it for $20,000 on terms, $200 at 100 months or whatever the case is. All of a sudden, that's affordable, it's accessible for that person, and now I've got an income stream for however many months I just created. We've done that over and over and over again since 2020. We're doing this now in 2025. That business creates over $33,000 a month in passive income. And that to me is by far our best thing because it's super secure. We bought it at such a low loan to value. And even when people default, there's no foreclosure process because it's literally a land contract. So we take back ownership of it immediately. We deploy it onto the market, and resell it.
Mm-hmm.
And your basis goes down every time. That's one of my favorites we've done. Private lending has always been a good, simple, but profitable venture for us. And the more you get into the investing world, the more deals find you, especially really good private lending deals, because they're like, hey, I only need 100,000 for the next 30 days for this one deal or whatever, and I pay 12%. It's like, oh, well, that was easy. I'm right now in the process of building a portfolio of content websites. Me and a buddy, he's an operator. Again, I don't do it myself because I'm not an operator. But these things kick off anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month, depending on which sites you're buying. And you can buy them for $10,000, give or take. Those things are the first one I did last year returned over 60% in the first year. And it's very low maintenance, very low entry to get in. You don't have to be an accredited investor or anything like that. So, I can tell you whatever else you want to know, but these are some really cool things that we've been doing. There's a guy out here locally that does Turo. I've been able to buy, I actually gave him my old minivan, and he's been able to make almost roughly $600 a month net to me with him managing the whole thing. I've just bought 2 smaller like Nissan Sentras, and they're just starting to put those into the fleet. But again, it's completely hands off
for you,
for me, and just cash flows every month. So,
what are some horror stories? What are some what are some bad deals you've got into?
Oh, man.
Because it's I mean, for every good one, you're going to have a bad one too, right? It's not all roses.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing about it. Like, we don't have a dog in the fight. We don't sell land flipping. We don't sell Turo. We don't sell any of these things. These are just people that we've interviewed over the years on our podcast, and we're like, let's test it out. Let's tell to the world, how does this actually work? Because it's one thing, there's a lot of gurus that don't actually know how to make money in the thing that they're selling.
No shortage of those,
right?
Well, I want to know what's your because I feel like Joey, you goof around a lot. You like to have fun, so I have a feeling you're not gonna mind telling a really embarrassing story about something that just did not work at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm hopeful that this is not the end of the story. Okay, I'm gonna lead in with that. 2019.
Okay.
I buy a website. It's a drop shipping company.
Okay.
100unicorns.com. 100unicorns.com. I'm serious. Hey, listen, you just saw I have $5.
The number 100 or spelled out?
100 unicorns. 100unicorns.com. And by the way, I'm a grown man buying a website like that, but I have 5 daughters. And at the time, my oldest, 6 years ago, she was 12. And so I'm thinking, this is perfect. I'll buy a website. It's drop shipping. How hard could it be?
You bought the domain, or you bought the business and it already came with the website?
Business, yeah, it was like $6,000 for the whole thing.
Okay. That included the website.
Yeah. And all it is, people go on there, they find a product. The product is linked to someone in China. They sell it to them, and I make the spread. Like, I sell it for $20.
Got it.
I buy it from China.
But what is it?
Whatever.
What?
Anything with unicorns on it.
Okay.
I'm talking T-shirts.
Okay.
Hair things. Bathing suits. I mean, whatever. You name it. There's a million different.
All right, got it.
But it's 100% unicorns
right.
on this website. So I'm thinking, this is so easy, right? This is and I'm going to teach my daughters about business.
Well, hold on. You bought it for $6,000?
Yeah.
That's not that much.
Yeah, you would think, right? And it was making money on paper. But then you have to understand that, how do people get to the website?
Yeah, you got to market it.
You got to market it. You got to be able to know how to do Google ads. You got to have Facebook presence. You got to be able to do. This becomes a job real fast. And what did I tell you? I'm not an operator.
Right.
I suck at that stuff.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to learn how this thing works, and I'm like way over my head real quick. And so I'm like, well, man, this is not working. I'm spending more in ads than I'm making every month. And I find out later that's really kind of the model. Like you have to buy your list essentially so that then you can email to them in the future. That's how you start making money in the
Mm.
future. But in the meantime, I'm just bleeding money. Like
Mm.
just
How much were you spending
hundreds.
in ads?
I mean, we're talking 500 to 1,000 a month and just not getting anywhere near that back. So I'm just burning money. I've reported on this since 2020, so you can go check it out. It's been a train wreck for a long time. So then I'm like, I need to shift this. This model's not working. I need to go to an Amazon model. And so what I've done is I've hired an operator who understands Amazon, and we are creating our own products from either China or India or wherever, and having them shipped into Amazon to be its own brand. Now, once that happens, and we're just in the infant stages of that, we will start to have actual business that's based off of more than, hey, I hope somebody comes to the website and buys this thing from China. They're actually going to Amazon. There's actually a scalable aspect to it. You just have to have the right operator. And so stay tuned on this, Brian. Stay
So
tuned.
what I hear you saying is everyone needs to go to 100unicorns.com and let's support Joey. Support Joey in this. Joey, how do you find an operator?
Man, I think first of all, you would be the best person in the world for that.
No.
Because you know why?
Do you know my investor profile?
No, not that you would be an operator.
No.
You would be the best at finding operators.
Oh, at finding operators.
Because
okay.
you are the master of networking. You're the master of creating value in other people's lives, and then you become this like magnet, right? I feel like you and I are very similar. And all it is man, it's looking for people that do not have, like they have the strengths that you don't, that require for that job, for that business, whatever it may be.
And so what am I looking for? Who are these? Where are they? What are they doing right now? Are they employees, current employees that want to get out of being confined to a 9 to 5 and want a little bit more flexibility with their time?
Yes, they're also business owners that had a failed venture.
Okay.
They're also business owners who are burned out and like need some structure around, hey, this has really just been all encompassing and I need something that I can kind of have like a team around me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think it comes in, is like it can't be totally passive. Russ and I will meet with those operators regularly.
I was just supposed to ask, how many operators do you have right now?
Well, in certain ones require very little.
Okay.
And certain ones require.
But you're still in a situation where, we talk about this a lot, where if you buy rental property, obviously we encourage a manager to make it more passive. Nothing is totally passive, right. I don't think. But you have to manage the managers. You have to really be on top of the numbers. They're going to send you a monthly report, but you need to actually open it and look at it and see what's happening and get on the phone with them and have productive conversations with them. So is it a situation like that where you're sitting down and talking with them once a month or so?
Yeah, and it's sometimes it's just like, hey, tell me where you're stuck right now. Oh, well, man, we just had this one issue with this tenant or with this, guest, or fill in the blank, whatever the type of business is. And sometimes it's just super easy for us to be like, oh, well, let me apply something that happened to me years ago in this business to this business. Maybe there's a connection. Or sometimes it's just like a connection, right? Like, for instance, the guy I was talking to you about the websites. Today, we're talking about, we're just meeting about these new acquisitions that we just made. And he's like, yeah, you know what? We really just need somebody who works on the inside at Google that could help us figure out how to index these sites better. I don't have an immediate connection for that, but I know what to look for now. And I know that someone in my network has that connection. I'm just confident that that's the case. And it's just a matter of me then being helpful to the business in that regard, where that operator can keep running, and now we've solved something really big. But I think that's the part where Operators have a skill set that you don't, but you have a complementary either experience, resource, advisory, whatever it may be, that will combine. Wait, 1 + 1 = 3. Now you've got something really special.
Hmm. So you're not. It seems to me like you're not currently active running, I guess, the life insurance part of Wealth Without Wall Street. You're
Correct.
more on the side of trying to. You mentioned masterminds. You mentioned almost like the role of consultant. Is that fair to say?
Well, so the way I think about it is like Russ and I are the mouthpiece
Okay.
of Wealth Without Wall Street. We're the brand ambassadors. We're the visionaries, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We also are involved in the mastermind from that standpoint as well. From the insurance company, we're very hands off. Our main role now, this is kind of a newer thing, and I'll just share it with you, but we're in the process of buying smaller insurance companies
Mm-hmm.
to be a part of a bigger kind of a network.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got two that will be closing on this month,
Mm-hmm.
and one is kind of already under LOI. So we're in that process of expanding through acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Are they local or they're
No, they're all over the
national?
country.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, again, I think something I learned in college one time is the guy was sitting there with me. He was my leader. And this was in a ministry event. And he was like, Joe, he's like, leadership is knowing what only you can do and making sure that the other things are handled by the people that are gifted in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so my job is always constantly like taking that list further and further down to the only things that I can do and letting other people flourish in the roles that God's given them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at.
I feel like just knowing you the little bit that I do, I feel like that's kind of the role that you found the right role. You found the thing that you were looking for. Because I don't know that you probably didn't want to be an insurance salesman your whole life.
Nobody really wakes up thinking, you know what I want to do when I grow up? I just want to talk about.
No, but do you feel like you're on the path to finding kind of like your purpose? Do you think about things like that?
Well, first of all, I think my purpose is always to glorify the Lord, whatever I'm doing. And at the different stages, there's been aspects of what I do that are like really aligned with who I am. And I've become more and more and more aligned with that.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, but if I'm like looking down and I say a 5-year or even a 10-year kind of vision, what my ultimate vision is I want to be sharing this message in a much bigger context with the world and being a full-time investor that I don't necessarily have to own all these different various companies, insurance or masterminds or whatever. I can just simply focus on being a mouthpiece and investing. And part of that is you met my 5 daughters. I want to eventually be freed up enough to invest in their future husbands, right? I want to be um, open. I'm not saying I'm going to force anybody, but I want to be open to be a mentor, to be advising companies that I start with them and my daughters, like helping them. Because, I mean, we all wish that we had that mentor, that person that would have started with us in our young 20s, and we've had to learn everything the hard way. It's like,
for sure,
it seems very inefficient to let my daughters and son-in-laws figure that out on their own, when I could be a resource. So I don't know. That's kind of what I see, like that would be really ideal.
Yeah. I appreciate you, man. What did I leave out?
Man, I don't know. I think the big thing for me is just how do you think about what you're doing every day? How do you think about the impact that you're having?
Mm.
And as a real estate investor, I'm assuming a lot of people that listen to your show are real estate investors. You already have
Real estate investors
and people that
want to, and then also, we throw out the word. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Don't lose your thought.
No, it's fine.
I think going back to, I'm glad you brought this up, because you mentioned something earlier about the person who Dave Ramsey is talking to. That's the person that's trying to get back to zero, their head above water, and then there's the investor. There's someone who's actually trying to. It has to come from somewhere in order surplus.
Yeah, that they're doing something.
Well, this is what I think a lot of people get confused about that may be real estate investors or think they are or want to be one. Flipping houses is not being a real estate investor, right? You have a job, you own a job.
100%.
Wholesaling houses, you own a job.
Yep.
There are a lot of these things within real estate that we call it REI, real estate investing, but is it really? It's a lot of these are just jobs we've created for ourselves. And there's no doubt that's, one of the bigger mistakes I made is in the beginning, I was wholesaling. That's how I got my start in real estate. First deal I ever did, I made 10 grand on a wholesale deal. And that wasn't investing. That's a sales and marketing business. Wholesale is
Right.
Sales and marketing, right? Real estate just happens to be the product.
Right.
So it'd be like if I was a shoe salesman. I was like buying at a low cost and I sold them for more.
Right.
I'm not a shoe investor. It just happens to be the product, right? Well, what the trap I got caught in is I was doing really well wholesaling. And it didn't dawn on me until way too late that I just had a high paying job
Right.
that I was paying the highest rate of taxes on versus, hey, you know what? Those houses over there in Center Point that are 3-bed or 4-bed and 2 baths, full brick, full basements, 2-car garage, I'm getting them for 20 grand and endless supply of them at 20 grand, by the way. And I'm selling them for 30 or 35. And I think I'm cool because I'm making 10, 15 grand a pop. If I had those today,
Yeah.
just 1 out of 5, these houses are worth 250 grand today, right?
It's crazy.
And it's just, thinking back, the biggest mistakes I ever made in real estate is I didn't hold on to enough property. And, to your point, I just, the folks that are working out of surplus, those are the investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people that are probably watching this, I don't want to say most, but a lot, it's the person who either wants to start wholesaling, wants to start flipping houses, but I just think it's good there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you have a 9 to 5 that you hate, and now all of a sudden you're in real estate. At least you're making the connections, you're wholesaling a few deals, and you've become free of that lifestyle that you didn't want anymore.
Yes.
That's an important step to take, and I don't want to diminish that by any stretch.
But don't let that be the end.
No.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, there's no shame in someone. I mean, because I want to remember your story. You were coaching full time, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was a college basketball coach.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the most underpaid job of all time.
Well, people don't think that. People see, John Calipari, and people see, what Mike Krzyzewski was making, and what, even Nate Oates, if you want to bring it back home to Alabama. I mean, what these coaches are making is ridiculous. But what the low level, I was Division I too, but the low level, low major Division I coaches, they're not making anything.
Well, when you trade the amount of hours for the amount of pay, it's one of the lowest paying jobs, right? And it's super stressful on your family. It's super stressful from just a mental and emotional capacity. So if you have to wholesale to get yourself out of that, do it. But don't, like you said, it's like a drug. It's like, man, I'm making a lot of money doing this. I can't stop. Well, you got to be trading those dollars for something that will then, that's why we call it a passive income operating system, because the system should require you to take some of that active income and make it passive. Mm-hmm. Because active income does not create freedom. It has to be passive. Mm-hmm. or semi-passive, as we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, again, whatever your path is, there is a way around it. If I can do anything, it's just inspire. Like, I am not a smart guy. I am just a regular, everyday guy. But once you get really, really clear on your why, you can do amazing things. Like, you don't have to be smart like Wall Street. You don't have to be some amazing speaker or anything like that. You just have to like get clear on what it takes to get to freedom. And so I'm really passionate about that. I really want to help people to get there. But man, if you're a real estate investor and you're not using the infinite banking concept, you can still get to freedom. So you're saying, is it required? No, but it's like driving a Volkswagen Beetle that's beat up when you could be driving a Lamborghini to get there. The vehicle to get you to your freedom number, infinite banking is going to get there faster, more efficiently, and it's going to optimize for much more than just the immediate dollars. It's a Nelson Nash used to say, think long range, and he is my hero in that because he met with me right before he died, and he was telling me how he's training his wife to be a widow. These are just really profound things that this man would say, and I've never heard anybody else talk like that. Wow. Number one, but he had the vehicle that made it simple. Mm-hmm. Using this system over his life, he was a land investor. He would buy and sell raw land, like tracts of timberland and stuff like that. He had land leases. He had all these sort of things. But the vehicle that he used in later on in life is he had all of these different life insurance policies that he was able to give away to kids, to grandkids, and he had plenty for his wife that she was sustained for the rest of her life without ever having to worry about anything. That's the difference maker. You can get there with cash, but there's so many more benefits using the system. So that's my sense.
And so I think that's a great place to leave things. So to wrap things up on, thank you, Joey. Thank you for inviting me into your home. Thank you for letting me meet your 5 daughters.
I love it.
That's just that's overwhelming. Let me just take a deep breath there. 5 daughters. Ooh, I got 1, and I'm overwhelmed already. But no, thank you for inviting me in here, and I appreciate all the wisdom. We're going to link up. You've got an awesome podcast. You've mentioned Russ's name many times, Russ Morgan. We're going to link up the podcast. We're going to link up how people can get in touch with you. Thank you, Joey. Appreciate you.
Dude, appreciate you.
All right. See you guys.